Well, welcome back, folks. We're doing round two here of Is Linux Viable for the Average Home User? And in this one, we're going to go through just a few things here that's kind of be a mixed bag. I'm going to touch on some little changes you can make, font changes and display changes to make things a little bit more readable for you. I'll touch on some of the internet packages that are available. I've got one utility that if you do anything with video, you probably want that for the video player. I will also touch on antivirus. So let's get to it, and let me give you an idea of what we got going on for this one. Okay, let's go over some basic stuff now that we've got the system installed. I'm going to start real quickly with changing a few parameters here. One or two programs I think you probably want to install off the bat. First thing, I did get a comment from the previous video that the graphics seem to be a little small. So let's address that one real quick. Let's go into here, and we're going to go to, now there's two things here. There's fonts and then there's font selection. You would think this one would be the one to choose, but you would be wrong. We're going to do font selection, and here's all our default fonts that are currently set. Now there's different ones for the system in general. There's one for the desktop, etc., etc., etc. So if we go to the default font, we can come in here and we can change, whatever that we want here. Here we have the size, so I'm going to bump this up to say 14, and you want to pay attention in this lower right corner here what happens when I select that. You'll notice that it's gotten noticeably larger, probably easier to read, but this hasn't changed here. These fonts here, so we have to go into the desktop font, and let's just do the same thing. Let's say 14. And there you go. Now you can see that that font is there. So you'll have to play around with this to get it more to your taste. You can, again, change pretty much anything in here. Document font, yeah, 10's a little small for me, so I'd probably bump that up to 12. You probably won't see that till you open something up. But that's that one right there, so I'll leave that one alone, and you can play with it. The other thing you can do, if you're still having trouble with the general display, is if you go into where it actually says display, you have your resolution, you have your refresh rate, you have your monitor scale. This is very similar to the scaling that's in Windows. So if we want to hit 125%, hit apply, and hit keep the new configuration, you can see, as soon as I get this out of the way, the icons have now become larger. So you have a couple of different ways you can change the display to your liking. So you'll have to go from there, and we're going to just go real quick here, and I'm going to change that back because that's a little large for me. So there we go. I'll change that back. That takes care of that. So that's a couple things that you can fool around with, if you will, to maybe make things a little bit easier for you to read. One more thing about the system and navigating the system. You'll note that whenever you install an application, it doesn't show up immediately on the desktop. It may not show up at all. But what you can do is you can simply go to any application, like for example here, we have Brave. All you have to do is right-click on it. You have the choice to add it to the panel, which will add it, basically what they call the panel is essentially the taskbar down here. You can add it to the desktop so that it's available for you. So with any program that you want to deal with, we go in here and we put in Thunderbird. Again, same thing. You can add it to the panel, you can add it to the desktop, so you can have your icons without having to go navigating the menu all the time. So that's something else you want to make sure that you keep in mind. Next, we're going to go back into Software Manager. And if you still have a system that has a DVD drive in it, I would highly suggest that you install VLC. That's one I would definitely install. Okay. Next, we're going to go into the different internet programs that are available. obviously the first thing is that Mozilla Firefox is the default browser that's installed. So that's not going to be any different than what you're used to. It works the same. You've got nothing's different here. If you do your email in a browser, not a problem. You'll type in the address for your email. You go to Gmail, you'll sign in like you normally do, and you can go from there. So that's no big deal. Now, if you're looking for a different browser, there are a couple of them that if you go into the internet section here, you will see Firefox, which is default and it's installed. You have Chromium, so if you want to install that, it'll work the same as regular Chrome, I believe, that's on Windows. You can install that one if you want. Now, for some reason, I know that Brave is available, but for some reason it doesn't come up in the search here. So anytime you run into that situation, my suggestion would be go back to the main menu or window, if you will, and try it there. And there's Brave. So for those of you who like Brave, it is available on Linux. Again, you'll simply install it and it will take care of that. You can switch to that if you want. In fact, I think when Brave comes up, it might ask you if you want to use that as the default, but I don't actually remember. We're going to find out here in a minute. No, it didn't ask me. I was under the impression it would, but it didn't ask me. But anyway, there you go. Brave is installed. It's functional. And if I go to youtube.com, there are no ads. I am pleasantly surprised. Let's go look at this here. Yeah, this is actually, it's blocking ads all by itself, which is, I like that. I like that a lot. So anyway, so that's Brave. That's installed. Opera is not available. In case any of you still use Opera, that's not available. I haven't found it anyway. If it is available, please somebody tell me in the comments below the video. For Firefox does not come with an ad blocker on its own, but if you go into the menu and you go to add-ons and themes, you do a search here for uBlock. This is the one I recommend that you install. I would recommend you to install it even if you're on Windows. You can, whether or not you want to allow it to run in private Windows, that's fine. I usually hit the yes on that one. And then we'll go back to youtube.com. And we'll do the same one. Yep, there's no ads here whatsoever, so you're good to go there. So that's those are the three browsers that are available in Linux. You have Firefox, which is the default. You can install Chromium, and you can install Brave. So those are the choices. Next, we're going to back into the internet category, and we're going to go to email. And Thunderbird is the default client. I have used Thunderbird for a very, very long time. I want to say probably as far back as 2008. It is my preferred email client. If there's something that you're looking for, again, you would type in what you're looking for. There is obviously no Outlook on Linux, so you're not going to find that. But you want to take a look at Thunderbird. I think you'll find that it works pretty well. All right, let's go into some more stuff. For those of you who use Skype, obviously you can see right here that it is available. So if you're interested in that, obviously I would install that. Although it doesn't show up here, if you type up into the search and hit Zoom, Zoom is available as well. So you can certainly install that if you like. Okay, one last thing I want to address. is antivirus software on Linux. For the home user is extremely scarce. There is a package that is called Sophos, I believe is how it's pronounced. I went looking for how you're supposed to install this, and according to this article here, which I will try to remember to leave a link in the video description below this video, is rather interesting. Let me put it that way. The steps glance, it shows you that you've got to do a command terminal, which, once again, I have to stress this. This is something that I don't know that the Linux community truly understands. Let me scroll down a little bit. It does give you some more defined steps as to how to do this. I want you to look at all the, once you've filled out a form on the website, you have to fill out a form in order to even get the package. So once you've got the package, you've got to go through these commands. Now, this is essentially the equivalent of using, I guess, PowerShell in Windows to get other things done, but the average user doesn't know that PowerShell exists, number one. Number two, you try to give them these commands that they have to follow. I guarantee you they're going to screw something up. So, I'm sorry, but at this point, Sophos is out. If you have to go through all of this stuff just to get an antivirus installed on the system, I'm sorry. It's, no, that's, I can't deal with that. And the average home user is not going to deal with that. So that's out. So the only other package that I am aware of, and I grant you that I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but the only other package that I'm aware of, and this one happens to be free. Let me go into the software manager. The only other one that happens to be free is something called Clam AV. Now, the standard install of Clam AV is a command line interface. As you can see right here, it says command line interface. Okay, but there is a graphical front end for this. So basically, you want to install Clam AV first. Once it's finished installing, it will install a couple additional things along with it, which if we go back to the list, you'll notice the clam base is here. Fresh clam, that's here. I'm not sure if you need to install the daemon or not. I'm going to install it anyway, just to see what happens. But once that's installed, that's there. You notice that there's not a launch button for any of the stuff, so none of the stuff has a GUI interface whatsoever. It's only when you get to the Clam TK and you install this that you finally get something that says launch. Here's my other issue with Clam AV. Yes, it does have a graphical user interface, which is nice. That's fine. There's update that you can do. It says I've already configured to automatic update, so that's fine. We have an update assistant here. Computer automatically receives updates. I'm assuming that's probably because I installed the daemon. So that's there. The one thing that I don't see on here, oh, my mistake, there is a scheduler. So you can schedule when to scan your home directory. So that does exist. When I first looked at this, I missed that, and I thought, yeah, if you have to do everything manually, that's not going to work. So anyway, so you've got a graphical interface for Clam AV. So at this point, my recommendation is, if you think you need antivirus on Linux, and you probably do, there's only one choice, especially if you want it free. This is it. So with that, I have maybe a thought or two here shortly, but I think at this point I have run through most of the stuff that I think is reasonably important on how to get a Linux system up and running, how to navigate it, and we now have at least some sort of an antivirus solution. So I'll have some thoughts shortly. All right, so there you have it. We have a couple of system tweaks that we can do to make it a little bit more visually acceptable. We have the browsers covered, at least the ones that I'm aware of. Email, Thunderbird's pretty much it, and I won't elaborate. There's probably other people who will be more than happy to tell me something I've missed as far as the email is concerned. You've got your Skype, you've got your Zoom, so those are covered. You got VLC for doing the video stuff. That's perfectly fine. If there's anything else that you'd like to see me at least attempt to cover as far as software is concerned, again, please leave me comments below the video and let me know. The antivirus situation, at least in my mind, is not all that great. As I mentioned already previously, anything that makes the average user, now again, I have to stress this, makes the average user do all these command line things, no, that's out. That's the thing. That's my pet peeve. That's the one that makes me, well, I don't know, angry, maybe angry, I don't know, is that the vast majority of the Linux community, at least as far as the little interactions that I've had with them, is they do not seem to understand. I don't know if it's they can't understand, they won't understand, that if they want this operating system to be popular on the desktop, I know it's very popular in the server area, that's fine. But if they want it to be, you know, popular on the desktop, they got to iron out this stuff. Dealing with tar packages, dealing with, you know, command lines to extract the tar and then run the installer. And guys, come on, you got to get this right. You got to get this. If they can't double click on something and have it do the install, they're not going to try it. I guarantee you they're not going to try it. If they have to do this all the time, it's going to drive them up a wall. It drives me up the wall. And I have some familiarity with Linux. I have done command line stuff before. I understand that. I don't do a lot of it. I try not to do a lot of it because I try to, you know, okay, how would your grandparents deal with this? Okay? Try to think of it in that perspective. How would your grandparents deal with this? That's what you kind of need to understand, I think. Anyway, so that's lesson number 2. I don't know what else to do at this point to cover. Please let me know what subjects you want me to try to touch on. And I'll see you again in the next video. Thanks. See ya.